The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. In the first segment of the show, at the end of the segment, we talked about the way to transfer a firearm from person to person. One thing I want to note on person-to-person transfers is that the old way of doing things, going to the state police website, putting in all of the data that they request, is only a temporary fix. The state police does not have in their system yet the way that the law has laid out. As of January 1st, 2024, all transfers will have to go through a federal firearms licensee. That was part of a previous act. It was bumped up to July 1st of 2023. And now we return you to your regularly scheduled program on Exploring.
Work within a chemistry or biology lab. So that's a program that we host at a local university that weekends high school students get to experience what it's like to work in a lab as well as conduct different research using IT.
Wow, that's a lot different than when I was involved in it. What are the prerequisites to join an Explorer program?
First prerequisite is age. And if you are going to join a post, which is one of the most common formats in which kids join, you have to be in high school. You cannot be over a certain age. In most cases, it's the age of 20. And each individual post has different prerequisites. For instance, some you have to apply and then you have to interview as well. And some, all you need to do is fill out an application. Each post is different because it is up to the jurisdictions of the municipalities and organizations that host them.
Got it. And I didn't know the answer to that. That was really for the public. One of the prerequisites with the Skokie Police Explorer program is you cannot have a criminal record because we don't want people with criminal records coming in, understanding the police procedure, and becoming better criminals. So we had a couple of people that applied that were declined, politely declined. So in addition to Explorer posts and doing research for this, I didn't know this ahead of time, but now there's clubs also for junior high school age students. Can you expand on that and tell everyone what is an Explorer club?
So an Explorer Club is run very similar to a post. The biggest difference that we have from our perspective is that instead of having 4 registered leaders, you need to have 2 registered leaders. My experience, they tend to be a little smaller, and that's pretty much it. There's certain subjects that they probably will not cover, but once again, it is under the jurisdiction of each individual post or club. Students at that age should be also in middle school, as I mentioned. Clubs are middle school, and so as a result, students must be in between 6th and 8th grade. You cannot have, for instance, a 5th grader, and you cannot have a 9th grader join. It is strictly for middle school.
Do organizations typically have both a post and a club, or is it one focused on one focused on the other, or everything, all the above?
Once again, I feel like this is going to be very much a copy-paste answer, for which I do apologize. But once again, it's up to the discretion of the organization that is hosting it. And some have both a club and a post. We have a few police units that have that. In some cases, they just have the club. So, for instance, we have a STEAM program, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. That one is strictly club. Only middle school students do that one. And then there are additionally some that just do posts because they tend to do fairly high advancement stuff. Sometimes scholarships are involved for college, which might not really apply to middle schoolers as much as it would to, say, a senior in high school. As well as with clubs, a lot of times there's not as much, it's more of a genuine exploration, whereas opposed to high school, the kids are really thinking about careers. And also the organizations are thinking about future employees. So when you're working with an 11-year-old, they may not be thinking about a job, but an 18-year-old, they're probably thinking a little bit more of what am I going to do after high school? And that's the biggest difference between the two. And like I said before, it depends on the organization. Some have both as a form of community outreach, and some have one, usually a post, because they're looking at potential employees.
Many years ago, this was called the Northwest Suburban Council, and now it's called Pathway to Adventure. And I understand that there were 4 different councils that merged. How many students or how many explorers would you say we have approximately in the council?
Within the council, it is approximately 600, and those are across multiple county lines as well.
Okay, so you're affecting potentially 600 people who are going to go on and be very successful in their careers because of the program. That's the whole reason for the show, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and we're going to be increasing that number of kids this year as well, which is really exciting as more posts come back. COVID was really rough on our numbers, as it was on almost every single nonprofit's numbers. But with things coming back and there being more interest, there being more engagement, the big one we're seeing is a lot more interest in fire and EMS, which is so crucial at this time because it feels like this might be, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like this is one of the first time in American history where we have a lower number of applicants that for fire posts, or not fire posts, but for firefighter positions in the fire academy than we've ever had.
And for police departments.
Yeah, for police departments, it is a massive problem. Also, education, a lot of people are less likely to apply to be teachers at this time. And that is a truly frightening thing to think about, lacking firefighters and teachers and other public servants. I mean, that is really crazy to think about, and it's a little nerve-wracking.
It's the cornerstone of society, is people helping other people, which is one of the things, as everyone listens to the show, they're going to hear a couple themes, couple of the same thing over and over, and that's about service to others. Can you tell us, as a council or as a larger area, what kind of activities are explorers involved in, both fun, educational, service, like all of the above?
So with service, once again, I feel like this is the copy paste is, it depends on the organization, but it can be anywhere from helping out at events in the local community to learning and teaching first aid and CPR. Some of the fun events that kids have helped out with is helping direct traffic at concerts. That was at some of our units within Indiana. And I think I may have mentioned we go all the way through Lake County, Indiana. Pathway to Adventure has been very big since we merged the 4 councils in 2015, right before I came on. So that's some of the activities that they do. Some of them also take place in other local community events that they help out with. Some of the fun events that they get to do, or fun things they get to do, I mentioned we have an aviation post. That is one of our longest and most prestigious programs. It is wonderfully run, and they get to go to Oshkosh every year for a big flight convention. That is a big highlight of the year for them, and I love hearing about all the adventures that they get to go on. We also have some students who are attending the Fire Academy at University of Illinois. There is a lot, and then we also have some retreats that occur. That's just a handful of some of the things that they do. It's definitely a place of privilege. It's a privilege to be an explorer, and it also instills a sense of camaraderie amongst a lot of the youth that take part in it. And it also, I think, is a great way for a lot of people to give back as well. One of the cooler things that we have done this year with one of our Chicago police explorers is the students in the 25th district got to work with Stanford University in taking 360-degree camera pictures of both their neighborhood and downtown Chicago, and then not only being able to put that 360 image on camera, but be able to turn it using Google Cardboard into their own VR headsets. And they were able to better identify a sense of not only what their local community is, but what the greater Chicago community is. And having that in the hands of a lot of kids. So I should mention this is a part of Chicago where we really don't have that type of opportunity. And to be working hands-on with some researchers at one of the top universities in the world in this type of thing, you wouldn't think it's possible, but with Chicago Explorers or PTAC Explorers, it absolutely is possible.
This is an off-the-script question. What is Google Cardboard?
Google Cardboard is a structure that you can order online I'm trying to find a great way to describe it. It is basically making a VR headset using cardboard, literal cardboard that's mailed to you. But instead of putting a super expensive camera in front, you are taking your phone and sliding it right in. And so that way, because it's got the blinders up, you can then see the 360. And part of the engineering output that they use online with this project is the ability to make that image 3D. You can do that with also a panorama view on your camera. And you can also do that with some other wiggles as well. But that's basically what Google Cardboard is.
I'm guessing there's an app that goes with it.
Nope.
No, it's just, oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to have to do some research. That sounds very interesting to me.
It is only, last time I checked, I think it's $19.
Still, dirt cheap.
Very, very
for
cheap.
do-it-yourself VR. Very good. Thank you for explaining that. I learn when I do these things. Mm-hmm. It's great. So when I was an explorer, and we talked about this before we started to record, that there's still a sea exploring and they learn how to sail. When I was a kid, there was also high adventure. Is there something similar now?
Venturing is still one of our big programs.
And can you explain what venturing is?
I should start off with this by saying that I do not oversee the venturing program. But with that being stated, the biggest thing about venturing is it's all about high adventure. In 1998, the venturing program took over the outdoor sections of the old BSA Explorer program, and then career-oriented parts became transferred to our Learning for Life organization, and they were renamed Exploring. And then Sea Scouts in February 2016 became a completely separate program away from venturing. So venturing is still, we call those crews. They are still a part of us. There are ones all over the Chicagoland area. I would recommend reaching out to your local district executive and they can point you in the right direction. Unfortunately, if you contact me about venturing, I will probably just send you off to a district executive, your local district executive, and say, hey, help them out. But it's like exploring. Venturing is also co-ed. They've done everything from going whitewater rafting to going abroad to places like the Dominican Republic or Mexico, other places, and taking part in high adventure. They also are able to go to different places, as I mentioned before, and take part in not only high adventure, but leadership courses as well. It's a fantastic program, and I cannot recommend it enough for kids.
If I were a student and I was interested, and I'm just spitballing here, I was interested in law enforcement, but the high adventure also really appeals to me. Uh-huh. Could I join both?
You could join both. My first thought is you could arguably be all three. You can be an Eagle, you can be a Scout, a regular BSA, Scout BSA. And I should mention my oldest daughter is actually in Cub Scouts herself. She was the first girl to join in her pack, and she absolutely loves it. And not only that, but you can arguably do all three of them. But the biggest challenge that you will have is time. I don't think everybody is Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, where you've got that time tourney thingy where you can do multiple things at once. The biggest challenge you would have is time and location. Some exploring posts are right by you. Some are a little bit further to get to. And the same thing can be said for venturing. But yes, to answer your question in a roundabout way, you could absolutely do both.
Very good. And we talked about camaraderie. We talked about learning about careers. What else does exploring teach about life?
I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is we talked about camaraderie, and we also have talked about leadership. And I think it also teaches responsibility. For a lot of these youth, if you don't show up, then you don't get the opportunity to do these things. And if there's one thing I have unfortunately noticed as an adult, a lot of adults still struggle with that, where if you don't show up, you will lose this opportunity. If you do not dress in according, you will lose this opportunity. If we catch you making an offhand remark or behaving in a way that is un-scout-like, you will lose this opportunity. And there may be some challenges where some individuals are like, oh, wait, you shouldn't be able to say that, do that. But there are rules within society, and whether we like it or not, we have to follow those rules. And I think that is such a good thing to learn when you are still young and you're not fully out in the real world and you're still learning. Being able to have those lessons and being able to work in a group and be able to have leadership abilities really sets a youth up for a success in a way that is absolutely immeasurable.
Fantastic. Is all of BSA now co-ed? Or is it case by case? I know exploring is co-ed, yes. Venturing is co-ed.
Yeah, exploring and venturing have been co-ed for many years, but many people are asking about Scouts BSA. So for the most part, it is if you're a girl and you would like to join, you absolutely can. But in many cases, we keep groups separate. There are a lot of rules, for instance, within sleeping arrangements if you're out camping. But I mean, I say this also as a Cub Scout leader. Most of the time, my child is with me rather than kids staying together. But for most cases, we try to have girls only troops, boys only troops. And that will be exciting to see how things change with how many youth join, as well as how it's run. For the most part, if you're a girl, you can join any program. As far as I know, there may be some jurisdictions or organizations that may say, hey, this is female only or this is male only. We have had a few that I had to laugh at when we hosted a separate STEM program where people thought we were female only, but that was because only the girls joined for some reason. I don't know why. That just happened. But yeah, for the most part, everything is, especially within exploring has always been, ever since I started managing the program, it has always been co-ed. Although, ironically enough, a couple of our very prestigious programs that we have within law enforcement are majority female, and they're also female-led. And that one is our FBI Explorer post.
Wow.
Yeah.
The post that I was involved in, you probably don't know this because it was very historical.
Mm-hmm.
Before I joined, at one point for a long time, it was an all-girls post.
Oh.
Not by design, just happened to be, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And they would surprise, I'll say that, the other posts, as they would show up as an all-girls post and knock the socks off of everyone else with the knowledge in the program, and that it evolves into this radio show.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share any lighthearted or heartwarming stories to listeners who are mostly parents about how their youth have really affected other people by volunteering in the community?
One of the big ones is my former coworker, and I say former because he is now a police officer for Schaumburg, but my coworker Caleb here at Scouts was an explorer for many years. And he wanted to go back and serve the community, not just as a district executive, but as a member of law enforcement. And having a young man who is from that community, who served within Explorers and within Scouting, and then now is back as a law enforcement officer, is a very powerful statement and message. Some of the other really cool things I've seen are youth that have really grown up in the program. I attend the FBI graduation every year, and being able to see some of these kids not only inject leadership skills, but also humor and personality into something that could otherwise be very stern or scary for a lot of individuals. And then not only that, but our aviation post has been absolutely phenomenal. They were introduced into the Illinois Aviation Hall of Fame not too long ago. And not only that, but we've had plenty of the students have gone on to become pilots for massive airlines. We are incredibly proud of the aviation program. It is one of our finest programs. And being able to know, and I say this as someone who does travel through plane a lot. My in-laws live across the country. I'm part of a very large family that likes to travel. And knowing that there are explorers who are piloting my plane, I don't know if they've piloted a certain plane that I've done. I don't know if any of them are Southwest. I'm a big Southwest stan. But knowing that I have an explorer behind the cockpit, I feel a lot safer when I'm flying.
Obviously, the program talks about service and serving others, and that's a huge theme. Can you talk about your background? You have a PhD, which is very impressive, just to say the least. How did you get involved in the scouting organization? Obviously, you are in a role where you're serving others, probably, at least in exploring, one of the critical linchpins of coordinating the programs across the region. So what's your background? How did you get involved in scouting? And did you have some sort of inspiration maybe when you were growing up as an explorer or as a scout or as something else that we're not even talking about?
So I should start by saying first and foremost, I am I'm from Chicago. I'm from the South Side. I'm from the Beverly Morgan Park neighborhood, although I no longer live there. And growing up, scouting was really big. I was a Girl Scout all the way up through juniors. And then afterwards, sports took over. One of my biggest things, though, is that, especially when I was an undergraduate at Oregon and then briefly at University of California at Berkeley, I did a lot of outdoor activities. I was heavily involved in my whitewater kayaking program. I did a lot of backpacking, hiking. That's just what you do in the Pacific Northwest. And I always was, more importantly, throughout my entire life, I was always obsessed to a point where I loved learning, but I loved learning outside of school. I'm one of those people that likes editing Wikipedia for fun. I like writing articles for fun. And more importantly, I realized, especially when I was working in the museum, I worked as an archaeology assistant at University of Oregon. I really enjoyed watching how people learned outside more than the actual research I was helping conduct. And so that's how I ended up going into museums. I've worked in a series of different museums across the country, ranging from the Pacific Science Center in Seattle to the Lubbock Lake Landmark at Texas Tech University. And every single museum that I worked in, there were always scouts. You cannot have a field trip program without having scouts. There has not been one time I haven't been to the Shedd Aquarium, for example, where I haven't seen one giant scout pack. Or scout troop, both really. And it's really fun to see because everybody's got their uniforms on, and it's always a treat to see the different badges and see, okay, so we've got kids from Three Fires Council, we've got the Greater Michigan Council. Wow, these guys are visiting from James Beard Council. Like, these kids are from all over. And as a result, when I was finishing up my doctorate at University of Illinois at Chicago, my research there focused on informal STEM education. So now you can see this is not an accident. I like seeing how people learn science and engineering outside the classroom. I was going to study it, and I conducted research at a series of different museums while at the Learning Sciences Research Institute. And when I was finishing up my qualitative exams, that's when I saw that there was a post about a position called the STEM executive position or STEM Scout executive position. And since I was no longer a research assistant, since I was on dissertation duty, I figured, you know what, why don't I apply for a full-time job? I met my director, Cedric Bodley. We absolutely hit it off. He is hands down one of the best people I've ever met in my life. He is just a 12 out of a 10. He is an amazing person. And from there, I helped oversee the beginning of our STEM program, we still continue to have the STEM program. Now it is evolved in both STEM and STEAM. And from there on out, I finished my dissertation in 2019. And the pandemic hit, but things keep on keeping on. Some of the additional things that I like doing within the STEAM program is helping design the curriculum. I'm responsible for almost all the curriculum within STEAM for Pathway to Adventure Council, as well as some other outside organizations. I've worked with National Geographic. I am a certified educator through them. I've also worked with a series of different museums and writing organizations, ranging from Museum of Science Boston to MIT, to our current position, as I mentioned, our current partnership with Stanford University. One of the biggest things that is my core belief not only when I was a Girl Scout, because we were doing a lot of hands-on learning within Girl Scouts. Probably my two favorite things that we did as Girl Scouts, learning to make our own soap from scratch, which we did apply to an extent when we did a fabric making workshop here, fabric science workshop, I should say, here within our STEAM program. And then also working with raptors, unfortunately not raptors from Jurassic Park. I actually just rewatched that movie the other day. Working with red-tailed hawks, and we took a whole hawking class. And although I don't apply that in my everyday life, I did get raptor handling certified at the Schlitz Autobahn right outside of Milwaukee with my husband a few years ago. And within that work, we were actually able to work with the Schlitz Autobahn in doing some really cool stuff during the pandemic, where we live streamed a lot of their videos of their raptor sanctuary. I could honestly go on, as you can probably tell, in learning outside the classroom, and specifically informal science and engineering education, informal STEAM education is absolutely core to what I do. And it really is I would say that's my guiding North Star for the most point. If we want to go back into the scouting terminology or venturing, exploring, that's my guiding star right there, is if you're learning outside the classroom, how can we best augment that to make it an incredible experience that makes you passionate about serving others?
What final thoughts can you share about getting involved in an Explorer program, contact information, websites, if someone wants to gather more information or do their own research?
Awesome. Thank you for asking. So there is our main website, exploring.org, exploring.org. But that's just the overview. To really get to know us and get in touch with us, please visit us at pathwaytoadventure.org. My email, which is probably the best way to get involved with an exploring post, if you see it or if you're interested, shoot me an email at Kristen, KRISTEN Vogt, V as in Victor, O, G as in goat, T as in Tom, at scouting.org. Yes, it's my name does not look like how you pronounce it, but it is what it is.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time with us today. Please feel free to reach out to Dr. Vogt or to me as I give my contact information throughout all the shows. I can certainly put you in touch with the right people. So thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
As we explore the Exploring program, forgive the pun, we will be interviewing a plethora of individuals who went into public safety and or became entrepreneurs and CEOs. Next week's episode will feature a retired Skokie police officer, Walter Trenadu, who was the advisor to the Explorer program that I was involved in and also my first professional mentor. Additionally, we'll be talking to retired Winnetka Police Chief Mark Hornstein, who was an Explorer with me. Be sure to tune in to hear from these terrific people.
Vote, V as in Victor, O, G as in Goat, T as in Tom, at scouting.org. Yes, it's my name does not look like how you pronounce it, but it is what it is.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time with us today. Please feel free to reach out to Dr. Vogt or to me as I give my contact information throughout all the shows. I can certainly put you in touch with the right people. So thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
As we explore the Exploring program, forgive the pun, we will be interviewing a plethora of individuals who went into public safety and or became entrepreneurs and CEOs. Next week's episode will feature a retired Skokie police officer, Walter Trenadu, who was the advisor to the Explorer program that I was involved in and also my first professional mentor. Additionally, we'll be talking to retired Winnetka Police Chief Mark Hornstein, who was an Explorer with me. Be sure to tune in to hear from these terrific people. We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.